In the dead of winter, when the world seems to hold its breath, a cardboard box sat shivering on the edge of a frozen creek. It wasn't wrapped in ribbon or left with a note. It was just sealed with silence, and the kind of abandonment that leaves scars even the snow can recover. Inside, curled tight against the bitter cold, was a dog. Not a puppy, not old, just forgotten. His fur was matted with ice, his ribs pressed like piano keys beneath his thin skin. One ear was torn, one eye clouded, but he was still watching, still waiting. No one came. The wind howled through the bare branches. The creek groaned under its own weight of frost. And time, that cruel thief, kept moving until it didn't. Because sometimes the universe leans in. A truck rumbled down that back road, off schedule and off route. A man named Elias, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and grief he never spoke of, pulled over. His headlights had caught the glint of something alive in that box. He didn't hesitate. He didn't call animal control. He just opened his coat and wrapped the trembling creature against his chest, like a secret he'd been waiting his whole life to find. He named him Ash, not for the color of his fur, though it was the gray of storm clouds, but for what remained after everything else burned away. Hope, stubborn and smoldering. Back at Elias's garage, a place of oil stains, rusted tools, and memories clinging to every wall, Ash didn't bark. He didn't beg. He just sat by the furnace vent, his eyes tracking every movement, as if bracing for the next betrayal. But Elias moved slowly. He spoke softly. He left food down without expectation and sat in silence for hours, letting the dog decide when to close the distance. Weeks passed. The ice melted. Spring crept in like a whisper. And then, one rain-soaked evening, Ash limped over to Elias's workbench, nudged his hand with a wet nose, and laid his head in the man's lap. That was the moment the healing began. Not just for Ash, but for Elias, too. You see, Elias had lost his son 2 winters before in a car accident on black ice. A silence so deep it had swallowed his voice whole. He'd stopped talking to neighbors, stopped answering the phone. The garage became his tomb. Until Ash walked into it. They started walking together at dawn, through dew-drenched fields, past abandoned barns, along the very same creek where Ash had been left to die. But now, the water sang, the birds returned, and for the first time in years, Elias smiled. Not with his lips, but with his eyes. But life, even when it heals, never forgets to test you. One summer night, sirens split the air. A wildfire, sparked by lightning, was racing toward the valley. Evacuation orders blared from every radio. Elias grabbed his go bag, his keys, and whistled for Ash. But Ash wasn't there. He'd vanished into the smoke-choked dark. Elias called, searched, screamed his name until his throat bled. Neighbors shouted at him to leave, but he ran toward the fire, his flashlight cutting through the ash like a blade. And then, a sound. Not a bark. A growl. Deep and protective, coming from the old Miller place, the one with the collapsed porch and boarded-up windows. Elias kicked in the rotting door. Inside, huddled beneath a table, were 3 trembling kittens, abandoned and terrified. And standing guard over them, his fur singed, body trembling but unyielding, was Ash. He hadn't run. He had stayed to protect what couldn't protect itself. Elias knelt, gathered the kittens into his coat, and let Ash press against his leg as they fled the burning woods. At the evacuation center, a reporter approached, mic in hand. "Why'd you go back for him?" he asked. Elias looked down at Ash, who gazed back with those quiet, knowing eyes. "He didn't go back for me," Elias said softly. "He went back for them." That night, something shifted in the town. People started talking, not just about the fire, but about the dog who stayed and the man who wouldn't leave him. Donations poured in for the local shelter, and Elias, he opened his garage not just as a shop, but as a foster space for abandoned animals, a sanctuary built on second chances. Years later, Elias sits on his porch, a cup of coffee in hand. Ash, older now and grayer, lies at his feet, still watchful, still loyal. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, you can hear it, the soft rhythm of 2 hearts beating in time, proof that even in the coldest places, love doesn't just survive, it rescues, it rebuilds, and if you listen closely, it's still out there, waiting, hoping someone will stop and see them, not as a stray, but as a soul. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that celebrates the incredible bond between humans and animals. We'll see you next time.